Did you know to support its world-class value management platform, Ecosystems has created the world's first maturity model for building an organizational-wide capability around customer value? The Value Blueprint, as we call it, maps the step-by-step journey across 5 levels of maturity in building customer value into the very DNA of your entire organization, along with benchmarks and practical advice for moving from stage to stage. Find out more on our website at ecosystems.io. And now, on with the breakdown. I was talking to a rather frustrated head of customer success the other day who shared a story that I've heard many times over my career, and it goes a little bit like this, sort of the general version, which is we show our customer clear business value. So maybe they've paid $100,000 for a 2-year contract, and across those last 2 years, we've managed to show them a demonstrable and quantifiable ROI of tens of millions of dollars, or let's just call it $1 million. So there's a hugely positive ROI or a hugely positive return on this relationship. And what's interesting about the way this story is going to unfold is it almost doesn't matter just how much above the threshold cost of that deal you were, whether it's a 2x or a 10x or even a 100x improvement of performance. There's this natural tendency for all of us to think that, that value, it's because it's based on math, and math is objective, and so math is clear, and a business is run on a rational basis, and therefore you take business, rational business and objective math, and you put those two things together, and if I can show you a positive ROI, and especially if I can show you a large positive ROI, why would you not renew? And yet time after time we find we show our customers sometimes massive positive ROI on the investment they made to work with us over the last 1 to 2 years, and yet they choose not to renew that contract anyway. And it always kind of leaves us hanging, sort of thinking like, are you crazy? And I think the answer is no, they're not crazy. You know what they are? They're humans. And I think that's the difference between math and business, right? In math is universal. It is why we're going to use math to speak to aliens someday if we ever meet them, right? It's because it's got this universal truth to it. But in business, and particularly in the world of business value, though it seems to be steeped in math and based in math, it is still taking place. It is occurring in the world of business. And business is not the world of objectivity, but of subjectivity. It is the world of humanity. No matter how much we want to think that business is rational, business is run by human beings and is based on human decisions. And at the end of the day, human decisions are always contextual. Whereas math has an absolute value, business has a contextual value. And those two things are very, very different. So it actually makes sense in the world of business that we could show someone a 10x or even a 100x ROI and still have them choose to do something else. Why? Because that decision happens in the context of all of the other decisions that business has to make, which ultimately then takes us to a place where that decision, which seems almost irrational on the surface and on paper, becomes rational within a broader context of all of the other priorities and all of the other investments and all of the other costs that particular business is simultaneously trying to manage. And that's why we always have to understand not just what is the ROI of our solution, but what is the context of our solution and what is the context of that ROI? How does what we're trying to do fit in with everything else that company is trying to do at the same time? Is it number 3 on a list of 5 things they need to get done, or is it number 5 on a list of 3 things they need to get done? If you're number 5 on a list of 3 things they get done, it doesn't matter whether you've got 100x ROI or not. The math may be true, but the business may have a different direction altogether. And that's why I think business value can be sort of misleading, because if we lead with the math, if we lean into business value as a math problem rather than as a business problem or a human problem, we're very likely to land in a place where we build a business case that makes complete sense and wind up with an outcome that seems, at least superficially, not to make any sense at all. And we're left scratching our head wondering, what happened? And that's what happened, is we failed to understand that business value, however positive it might be, in the broader context of what that business is trying to do. And that, you can see where this goes, means that what we really have to understand isn't so much the math, but the context of the math. What else is happening inside that organization? Not just what business outcome is our value tied to, but where does that outcome sit relative to all the other outcomes that customer is trying to achieve? Who's championing that outcome? Who's against that outcome? Where are there points not of maybe disagreement, but of disconnect across the stakeholders who all have a say in this? And what are their alternate priorities? What are their alternate uses of capital, the opportunity cost of their time, the efforts necessary to stay on board with this particular direction. All of that stuff, which is sometimes very subjective and very human, is just as important in a business value discussion as the spreadsheet itself, as the math itself or the calculation. Let's not forget that the business value conversation isn't just a math conversation. It's a human conversation.